What's up everybody, Unrested back here again with another JFAQ for you. And this is actually for a rehash on a video I made in the past, actually two different videos I made, concerning what I called harmony in the workplace, or also sometimes it's just called wa in Japanese. If you know the kanji for that, you'll know what I'm talking about. So this one is kind of rehashing that because I got so many questions about it, and I don't know why, but recently it's come up again. People are watching that video and still talking to me about it, asking me questions about it. And they're asking questions in the sense of, well, how does that work outside of the workplace? Because Scott, you talked about that. Yes, I did. I made a whole video on it. But how would it work for just going out and public, and how you would act in public as far as fitting in with Japanese society, assimilating, not necessarily losing who you are, losing your individuality, losing your Western side, which I don't say you have to completely do, but there are certain social norms that you need to adapt to that'll better let you, should I say, fit into Japanese society. Again, I'm not promoting you totally lose yourself and act totally Japanese when you get here. I'm just saying there are certain things that really will help you not just fit in, but even feel more comfortable when you go out. So first, let me just talk about what the Japanese call Tatemae, and Honne, okay? Those mean, and this is respectively, outside face and inside face, all right? Loosely translated, doesn't mean exactly that, okay? But the best translation we have is outside face and inside face. Now, I think right away you probably already understand what I'm talking about. When you go out in public, how do you act? And when you're inside your own house, how do you act? Pretty much family time versus public time. Well, in Japan, that's kind of a really big difference. How you would act around your family would be quite different from how you would act in public. Certain public displays of emotion would totally be capped. You would not want to show them while you're out in public. And I'm not saying you have to be a 24/7 robot when you go to your job, although some salarymen really do look like robots. I think what I best describe it as is learning which emotions to be temperate with. And by temperate, I just mean having a balance. For example, obviously, I've talked about it before, containing your anger. Anger in public is really frowned upon. In any situation, even if it's justified, even if it means lashing out. There is a way to command a certain amount of respect, for instance, in a sense of customer service, without getting totally frustrated, angry. There is a way to get your point across in Japanese without getting totally frustrated, red in the face, angry. And these ways are the social norm, and going outside of those will really get you ostracized fast and even make just friends you might make here feel extremely uncomfortable. Now, once again, as I said, don't lose who you are, but here's some things to think about. When you are arguing in Japanese, and we've talked about this before, if you're arguing for your way, you're not being ferociously aggressive about it. Hiko Simon talked about this before, where you're more so trying to get the other person to agree with you. So think of it more as a tactful debate, one with a lot of open dialogue, but at the same time trying to get the other person to passively see your way, okay? To suddenly get really aggressive in a situation where you feel you've been wronged would be completely frowned upon and probably just completely shut down the other person to the point that they'll stop the conversation altogether. And this is going to go for any situation. I'm just using customer service as an example. This can be any situation in public is what I'm talking about. Like I said, family time inside is different. Another thing is silent observation. If there's one thing I can say that helped me the most adapting to society here and learning the ins and outs was silent observation. If you're put into a new situation, don't just suddenly adapt your own Western ways to it. You might find yourself thoroughly embarrassed with what you do. For example, azuki bean. Probably many of you know what azuki bean is. It is a sweet bean, but the first time you look at it, it really looks like just a kidney bean, okay? If you were to have your first meal with an azuki bean, you might not know that that is a sweet bean and actually considered a dessert. A dessert which you would normally wait till the end of your meal to eat last, like desserts in a Western country, right? I have heard stories of people just diving into that right away and everyone giving them a look like, whoa, what's going on? You're gonna eat dessert first? It's a bit, out of place here, feeling a bit weird, okay? That's a small example. Think about how that can be magnified and bring you much more embarrassing situations. For example, moving a bowl with your chopsticks, or sticking your chopsticks really hard into the rice to make it look like, it looks like a funeral incense type pyre thing, okay? Those are just small examples though, right? Just think about how that could get worse and worse, okay? It could happen fast and you could get embarrassed really fast. And it's happened to me, all right? I have fallen victim to it myself. And that's where I learned to adapt the way of silent observation. Let me highly, highly suggest silent observation. When you're put into a new situation, especially maybe the first time you eat at a very nice dinner, for example, maybe you're visiting elderly Japanese people who still command a lot of polite manners and a certain almost ritualistic way in which they eat in order of dishes, meals, or what eats first. Clearing the whole dish, that's another big one, clearing the whole dish. So, silent observation, stick to that. This is for your tatemae, your outside face, okay? When you're also out, there's even things like public display of affection. And you're probably gonna think this is a crazy story, but it's very true. One of the stories that really surprised me at my second job that I worked in Japan was they told us to be really careful with public display of affection. And you think, well, yeah, what, don't make out with my girlfriend in public or something? What do you mean by that? No. We're talking about even more subtle things that maybe, in America, totally okay. In Japan, okay? For example, a teacher, a high school teacher, goes to the station, and the high school he teaches at is very close to the station that he's going to. He's about to get on the train, say goodbye to his wife, and head out to work. Gives her a quick peck on the cheek, heads to work, doesn't think anything about it. The next day, he gets a call, he's in trouble because his high school students saw him kissing his wife, which in Japan is just not done, okay? Even small things like that, a peck on the cheek, yeah, you don't think anything of it, right? And it's not something anybody's really warned you about, or there's a book you read, don't do that, right? Things like that need silent observation. Notice that the people around you don't even do things like big, deep hugs in Japan. There's talk of, one of the things that I heard before I came here, the talk of people running up to each other, getting really close, that are good friends or even family, and not actually hugging, but just waving, like this close, waving to each other. That happens more often. That's more common, because that is a sign of public display of affection, and it's just not done. No, the society's not a bunch of robots, it's just the way it works here, okay? When they're inside, of course, people do display, affection to each other, they show each other they love each other, they let each other know. But even to do something like say aishiteru, which means I love you in Japanese in public, is way too strong. At the most, you would say daisuki, okay? So, it's tiny things like that. I don't think there's any book you could read where you learn about that. If there is, I highly recommend that you put it in the comments below. But again, an example of wa harmony in public places. And this is something you're gonna slowly adapt to. My first year here, I made a lot of really stupid mistakes. Of course, they were forgiven because, obviously they didn't expect me to know everything. That's okay. I mean, that's one good thing, that you will be given a certain amount of leeway. But please, don't try to use that, as we call the gaijin card. Don't try to use that as your card to get away with behavior that's, you may think is charming, and perhaps even Japanese people will tell you, oh, ha ha ha, that's so cute, or something, but really inside they're thinking, oh wow, I wish you wouldn't do that at work, or, in public, or when you're with me and my friends. For example, okay, here's another one of where they got a response where they thought it was a positive response, but it really wasn't. A teacher, she used to wear a lot of perfume, and she came into work, and they said, oh wow, that's really nice perfume you're wearing. I can really smell it good. Okay, or I can really smell it well. Okay, but what they were trying to say to her was, your perfume is too strong. And in the workplace, we actually don't get all covered up in makeup here at a school and put on a bunch of perfume and stuff. And she just didn't know, okay? She wasn't trying to, do something taboo in their society. This teacher actually just didn't know. And You know, in Japanese, this subtle way is understood that this is telling them, okay, it's too strong, this is something we don't do, I notice it, but this is the best way I can tell you without being mean about it. Of course, when it translates to English, it sounds like someone's just being passive-aggressive, but really it's not. It's the way that they know how to tell someone in Japanese translated into English, which some people then in turn start to think, oh, they were just being passive-aggressive, going behind my back. No, they weren't. That was the best way they knew how to tell you in English. Now that's another thing that you have to learn to adapt to. There's going to be language barriers. There's going to be communication difficulties. And that's something you'll adapt to. It's something you'll learn. And it's something I'll probably get into with later videos. As for now, that's the video for today. I'm Unrested. This is JFAQ. I'll see you next time.